Man up. Stop whining. You're too soft. I heard it all. Then they faced what I went through and broke. Funny how pain looks different when it's yours, huh? You are too much, man. Those 4 words have followed me around my entire life, like gum stuck to the bottom of my shoe. I used to hear them from everyone: family, friends, teachers, even coworkers who barely knew me. It was always the same routine. I would feel something too strongly, speak up when something felt wrong, and then, bam, I was told I was being dramatic, too emotional, too reactive, too sensitive. The kicker? Most of the time, I was right. But being right does not matter when you make people uncomfortable. And I had a habit of doing that, just by existing. The earliest memory I have of being shamed for who I am happened when I was 6. My dad had just gotten laid off, and tension at home was thicker than concrete. One night, I cried because I overheard my parents fighting about money. I asked my mom if we were going to lose the house. She laughed. Not a comforting laugh. A cruel, dismissive one. Then she said something that still echoes inside my skull. Stop being such a little girl. Real men do not cry. That was the first time I learned that my feelings were a problem. Over the years, that message just kept getting louder. At school, I would get picked on for standing up for kids being bullied. Why do you care so much? Just mind your business, the other boys would say. In college, I lost a girlfriend after I admitted I struggled with anxiety. She said she needed someone stronger. At work, my manager once told me during a performance review, "You are technically good, but you need to develop a thicker skin." People feel like they are walking on eggshells around you. So I did what everyone said I should do. I quieted down, bit my tongue, swallowed my pain like it was part of the job description of being alive. You learn to fake normal. Smile when you are breaking. Numb yourself just enough to get through each day without making other people uncomfortable. Because nothing gets you labeled faster than honesty. But here is the thing. All that silence builds up. It stacks inside your chest like bricks, pressing down until breathing feels like effort. Still, I stayed quiet. I kept showing up. I kept helping others, even when no one showed up for me. Until the day it all flipped. I remember it clearly. Office break room. Karen from finance was sobbing at the table because her manager criticized her budget proposal. No one laughed. No one told her to toughen up. In fact, everyone gathered around her like she was made of glass. And I stood there, watching it unfold, remembering all the times I got told to grow up for reacting half as much. That moment hit me like a freight train. That was the day I realized something was off, really off. But I had no idea just how twisted things would get, or how the very thing I had always been mocked for would become my greatest strength. Because what came next? No one saw it coming. There is something about being labeled too sensitive that sticks with you, even when you try to forget. I do not just mean in the obvious ways. I mean in how you start to doubt your own perception of reality. Was I really overreacting that day at Grandma's house when Uncle Mike called me Crybaby Caleb in front of everyone? I was only 9. I had just lost my dog. They had to put Charlie down that morning, and I showed up to the family barbecue trying to hold it together. The second I got quiet and sat by myself, Uncle Mike pounced. Said he missed the days when I was not such a little drama queen. The adults laughed. My cousins laughed. I laughed too, because if I did not, I would have cried. Again, I remember going to the bathroom and locking the door behind me, sitting on the edge of the tub, face hot, trying not to let it spill out. I thought, if they see me cry again, they will never let it go. So I held it in, like always. Or the time in high school when I got into a heated argument with my best friend over something stupid. He had cheated on his girlfriend, and I told him it was wrong. He shrugged it off, told me I was acting like her therapist, said I should stop taking everything so personally. I am not asking for your moral compass, dude. We did not talk for 3 months after that. There were dozens of those moments. Quiet jabs, rolled eyes. Here he goes again. The way people would sigh when I brought up something that hurt. Like I was some kind of malfunctioning robot who could not just let things slide. So I adapted, learned how to laugh off my feelings, made jokes before others could. I became the guy who said things like, "Yeah, I know I am too much," with a smile. Like I was in on the joke. But inside, I was screaming. Every time I swallowed my truth, it chipped away at who I was. I went through college like a ghost. Attended parties, smiled at the right times, kept everything surface level. I had roommates who never knew when I was going through a depressive episode. I mastered hiding it, became fluent in silence. Then came the job. Corporate sales. High pressure. Long hours. Constant competition. I told myself I could handle it. That maybe this would be where I proved everyone wrong. But the culture was toxic from day one. People bragged about burning out. Showing weakness was career suicide. I remember my supervisor pulling me aside after I voiced concern about a project timeline that was pushing people to the edge. He said, "You care too much. That is the problem. This is business, not group therapy." I nodded, apologized, went back to my desk, and stared at my screen until the letters blurred. I was working 70-hour weeks, missing meals, ignoring the pounding in my chest that I knew was not just stress. It was something deeper. But I said nothing, because I had been trained for that, conditioned to hold it all in and pretend it was fine, until the day I came home and collapsed in my hallway. Not dramatic, just plain, silent collapse. My body gave up before I could admit I was not okay. I never told anyone about that. Not until now. But that was only the beginning. The real shift? That came when the cracks started showing in them. The same people who told me I was too much. And what happened next? I would not have believed it if I had not seen it with my own eyes. The irony started quietly. It was a Tuesday morning when Karen from finance had her meltdown. The same Karen who once told me I was exhausting to be around because I felt things too deeply. Now here she was, sobbing in the corner office because a VP had ignored her pitch. People gathered around her like a rescue mission. They brought tissues, offered to take her calls, even ran out to get her favorite coffee. I stood across the room, frozen, watching it unfold like a play I had seen before. Only this time, the cast had changed. Later that week, it was my manager, Alex. The same guy who told me, "Grow a backbone, Caleb. This job is not for soft types." He had spent months brushing off every concern I raised, every boundary I tried to set. And now, he was shaking, hands trembling, as he told HR he needed to take a leave for stress. Apparently, the pressure had gotten to him. One by one, they cracked. Slowly, messily. Nina, the woman who rolled her eyes any time I paused during meetings to think before I spoke. She left mid-call during a client presentation and never came back. I heard whispers about anxiety, medication, something about panic attacks. Even my old friend Drew, the one who said I needed to chill when I opened up about struggling with sleep, texted me out of the blue. Said he had not been able to get out of bed in days. Said it felt like the walls were closing in. I told him I was sorry he was going through that. I meant it. But I could not ignore the bitterness that crept in behind the sympathy. Where was all this compassion when I was drowning in silence? Where was this support when I begged for just a sliver of understanding? Back then, my emotions were a liability, a burden, a punchline. Now that they were feeling it too, suddenly vulnerability was brave. I was not angry. Not exactly. I was just stunned. I kept my mouth shut, but inside, something was shifting. Something quiet and steady. I started to see myself differently. Maybe I had not been the weak one all along. Maybe I had just been honest about how hard things really were. And maybe that honesty, however uncomfortable, had made me stronger, not weaker. But I was not ready to accept that fully. Not yet. Because just as I was beginning to process it all, life threw me a curveball I never saw coming. Someone from my past showed up. Someone I had not seen in over 15 years. And when he walked through that door, everything I thought I had buried came rushing right back. His name was Sean. He had not changed much, still wore those smug expressions, the kind that always made you feel 2 inches tall. Except now, his hair had more gray in it, and his expensive cologne hit my nose before his words ever did. The last time I had seen Sean, he was slamming the door in my face during Thanksgiving at my parents' place. I was 21, had just come out of a brutal depressive episode, and asked, begged, really, if I could skip dinner that year. Just needed space. Some quiet. He told me, life does not stop for your little feelings, Caleb. Show up or stop calling yourself family. So I showed up, sat at the table with a hollow smile, listened to jokes at my expense while I pushed stuffing around my plate. I said nothing. I never said anything back then. And now, 15 years later, there he was, stepping into our building's executive training seminar like nothing had ever happened, wearing that same confident grin. Only this time, he was not my cousin or some family authority. He was just another guy trying to stay relevant in a company that was evolving faster than he could. We locked eyes. His face shifted. He recognized me. A brief flicker of something crossed his expression. Was it guilt? Doubt? I could not tell. He walked up during the break, Gave me a pat on the shoulder like we were old war buddies. Caleb? Man, look at you. You have really grown into yourself. I gave him a polite nod. Said nothing. He kept talking. About how proud everyone was. How he always knew I had something in me. How people just grow out of that emotional stuff. I wanted to scream. Not because of what he said, but because he truly believed it. He thought I had outgrown my sensitivity. Like it was a bad habit I had finally kicked. Like I had finally become tolerable. But he was wrong. I had not shed those parts of me. I had learned to survive with them. In spite of everyone like him. The conversation ended quickly. He moved on to charm the room, still pretending to be the alpha in every space he entered. But later that week, I caught him sitting alone in the stairwell, shoulders hunched, hands shaking. He did not see me, but I watched long enough to know. Sean was not okay. Something had cracked. Maybe it was the pressure, the pace, the mask he had worn for decades starting to slip. That was the first time it hit me, not like a thought, but like a wave. I had survived what broke them, and they called me too much. But the real twist? Sean was not just in town for the training. He was staying with someone I never thought I would hear from again. My mother. And the message she sent me that night? It changed everything. I had not heard from my mother in over 6 years. Not after the last phone call, where I told her I needed distance. Not after the birthday I spent alone. Not after I got promoted and no one from my family even knew. So when her message popped up on my phone, I just stared at it for a while, heart pounding in my chest like it wanted out. It was one sentence. Sean told me you seem better now. That was it. No hello. No how are you. No acknowledgement of the years I spent clawing my way out of the grave they helped dig. Just that smug little sentence, as if better meant I had finally stopped being a burden. I did not respond. I could not. I sat there in my kitchen, lights off, phone screen glowing in the dark, and felt something between heartbreak and disgust twist in my stomach. What they saw as better was really just silence. To them, my absence was peace. My distance was maturity. My emotional restraint, hard-earned through pain, was now proof I had finally become normal. But they did not know. They had no idea I still wake up at 4 in the morning, sometimes with my chest tight for no reason. They did not see the nights I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering how different things would have been if just one person had said, "You are allowed to feel what you feel." They did not know about the therapy sessions, the journaling, the way I still second-guess my reactions before I speak, afraid I will be labeled too intense again. No, all they saw was that I was no longer crying at their table, that I was no longer asking for understanding, that I had gone quiet, and they mistook that quiet for healing. Sean showing up had rattled something, and now this message from my mother. It was like fate was asking, "Are you really done, Caleb? Or is there still something left to say?" I thought I was over them, over the shame, over the need to prove anything. But something inside me stirred. I opened my closet and pulled out the old leather binder I had not touched in years. Inside were the letters, the ones I wrote but never sent. One for each of them. Mom, Dad, Sean, my old high school best friend, my former boss, all the people who told me I was too much and then broke under the weight I carried in silence. But what was I going to do with them? I had no answer yet. What I did have was an invitation, not a metaphorical one, an actual invitation, handwritten, from my mother, for a family gathering I was not supposed to know about, and I was being asked to attend. The envelope was cream-colored with gold trim, like it had been designed for royalty or a wedding, definitely not a backyard dinner in upstate New York. Inside was a card that read, "Celebration of New Beginnings, Saturday at 5 p.m., family only." No address, no RSVP details. Just that line. Family only. It had been slipped into my office mailbox, of all places. No return name, just my name scribbled in my mother's familiar cursive. The same woman who once told me I was ruining every holiday with my moods. The same woman who told the rest of the family I was overly sensitive when I backed out of Thanksgiving because I was barely holding it together. She never invited me to anything after that. So why now? Part of me wanted to throw it away. Another part, the part that still wondered if I had ever mattered to them, kept staring at that phrase. New beginnings. Was it a trap? A guilt trip? A performance? Or was it something else? I showed up that Saturday, not because I hoped for an apology, but because I needed to see for myself what kind of people they had become without me. The house was just as I remembered. Neatly trimmed hedges, fake, live, laugh, love signs still hanging near the porch, and that same chipped driveway they never bothered to fix. I parked down the street. I walked in through the side gate, like I always used to, heart pounding like I was sneaking into someone else's life. The backyard was full, tables draped in linen, string lights overhead, laughter, clinking glasses, dozens of faces from my past. And there, at the center, stood my cousin Sean, arm around my mother, smiling like he had just won something. That was when it hit me. This was not a family gathering. It was a redemption tour. For him, he had spun his breakdown into a wake-up call. Said he had reconnected with what mattered. He talked about how family pulled him through, about how vulnerability was strength, about how therapy saved his life. And they cheered. The same people who told me to get over it. The same people who rolled their eyes when I said I could not breathe. Now they were toasting this man for rediscovering his emotions like he had just invented them. I stood in the back, silent, unseen, rage and awe boiling in my chest. It was almost funny. They had turned my curse into his miracle. And then someone saw me. Her. My sister. And the look on her face told me this was about to become something else entirely. I had not seen Claire in almost a decade. She used to be my best friend before she became one of them. We were close once. She would sneak into my room when our parents fought, curl up on the floor beside my bed, and whisper, "I know they're wrong." But as we got older, she stopped defending me, started laughing when others mocked me, started joining in. Now, her eyes met mine across the backyard, and she froze. Her wine glass tilted slightly, and I watched as the color drained from her face like a switch had been flipped. Then she turned and whispered something to Sean, who turned around, squinting into the crowd, searching. My mother noticed too. I saw her tense. That perfect smile of hers cracked for a brief second before she recovered. She walked straight toward me. "Caleb," she said, voice tight, fake warmth coating every syllable like frosting over poison. "You actually came." I said nothing, just stared at her. She stepped closer. This was supposed to be a quiet thing, for close family. I finally spoke. "You mean people who do not make others uncomfortable, right?" Her smile vanished. Before she could reply, Sean pushed through the crowd and extended a hand. "I am really glad you came, man. Really." I ignored his hand. "Glad enough to give me credit for being the one who taught you how to survive it?" Confusion flickered across his face. "You're getting applause for making it through the same pressure I lived with for years. The same silence that broke me first." My voice was low, calm, but every word felt like it was being pulled from somewhere I had buried deep. "You remember what you said when I asked for help? You told me I needed to toughen up, that the world would chew me up if I didn't stop crying like a little girl." He opened his mouth, but no words came out. I kept going. "You broke. I bent. I bent so many times I forgot what standing straight even felt like. And now you're the hero?" My mother stepped between us, trying to smile for the watching crowd. "Let's not make a scene. You're clearly still upset." That word again. Upset. Like I was the one ruining a perfectly good illusion. But before I could speak again, my sister did something I never expected. She stood up from her table, cleared her throat, and in front of everyone, she said, "Mom, you do not get to shut him down anymore." The silence that followed, you could have heard a pin drop. All eyes turned to Claire. You could feel the air shift, like the party itself was holding its breath. My mother blinked, clearly stunned, like someone had slapped her without touching her. Sean took a step back, unsure of what to do with his hands. I stood there frozen, watching as the one person I least expected to speak finally did. Claire's voice was calm, but it cut through the backyard like a blade. "He is not the problem," she said, motioning toward me. "You all are." My mother opened her mouth, but Claire raised a hand. "I used to think he was just fragile, emotional. I believed all of you." I laughed at him. I said things I regret more than anything. She turned toward me, her eyes glassy. "I watched you break in real time, and I walked away. I thought it made me stronger, but I was just scared of being seen the way they saw you." I did not move. I could not. Claire kept talking. "Mom, you always told us appearances mattered more than anything. You taught us to bury, to smile, to ignore, but you never taught us to feel. And Sean," she turned to him now, "you are standing up here preaching empathy like you invented it. But you never apologized to the person who showed it to you first." Sean's jaw clenched, and for a second I thought he might snap. But he just stood there, blinking like he was struggling to stay upright. I was still trying to process what was happening, still trying to make sense of this strange, sudden shift. Then Claire said something that changed everything. You were not too much, Caleb. You were just the only one brave enough to show it. That line, that single sentence, it hit me harder than any insult I had ever heard. Because it was the first time someone actually acknowledged the truth of what I had lived through. Not excused it, not explained it away, just saw it. And suddenly, the crowd around us was not laughing. They were quiet, uncomfortable. The performance was over. The hero narrative crumbled. And Sean, he just walked away. No exit speech. No more applause. The people who used to mock me for breaking, they were the ones standing in pieces now. But this was not revenge. It was not about putting them in their place. It was about finally standing in mine. People started leaving not long after that. No dramatic exits. No shouting. Just silence and awkward glances as folks slipped out one by one, clutching their half-empty wine glasses like they suddenly remembered better things to do. The string lights above us flickered in the wind, swaying like the party had aged 20 years in a single hour. My mother disappeared into the house. Typical. When things stopped looking picture perfect, she always found a reason to vanish. I figured she was either composing a long Facebook post about how cruel the world is to mothers, or pouring herself a glass of denial in the kitchen. I sat on one of the lawn chairs, finally breathing for the first time all night. My sister came over and sat next to me without saying anything. Just the sound of her bracelet jingling slightly as she fidgeted with it. You meant what you said? I asked, my voice raw. She nodded. Every word. I should have said it a long time ago. We sat like that for a while, two broken parts of the same story, finally admitting it out loud. She told me things I never knew. That she used to cry in her car before school. That she felt like if she ever showed emotion the way I did, she'd be cut off just like I was. So she learned to perform. Smile. Nod. Pretend. I listened. Not with judgment. Not with blame. But with something closer to understanding. Because I got it. It was never just about me. This whole time, our family was like a pressure cooker. They just happened to label me as the too much one because I leaked early. But the cracks were always there, in all of us. Sean. He collapsed when he lost control of his image. My mother? She built walls so high even the truth could not get in. Claire? She performed perfection until her soul went numb. I was not weak. I was just the one who stopped pretending first. That night, I drove home with the windows down. No music, just the sound of air rushing past, and the strange calm that follows a storm you never expected to survive. For the first time in my life, I felt something deep and still. Not pride, not vengeance, just peace. But there was still one thing left. One person I had not heard from since I walked away years ago. And when I pulled into my apartment lot and saw the envelope taped to my front door, I knew it was from him. The envelope was plain. No name, no return address. Just my own first name in blocky handwriting across the front. Familiar, shaky, and unmistakably his. My father. I stood there for a while, keys in one hand, envelope in the other, heartbeat loud in my ears. Part of me wanted to rip it up without reading. Another part needed to know. Inside was a single sheet of paper. No greeting. No dear Caleb. Just a paragraph, written like it had taken everything he had just to finish. I never knew how to raise someone like you. I thought you'd grow out of it. I thought being hard on you would make you stronger. But maybe I just broke the wrong parts. I see now you carried what none of us could face. And somehow, you survived. I do not know if that means I failed, or you succeeded. Maybe both. That was it. No apology. Not in the way I would have wanted. But for a man like him, that was a confession. I sat on my couch with the letter on my lap, staring at it under the soft yellow glow of the living room lamp. It felt like the final piece sliding into place. Imperfect, jagged, but honest. That was the word that stuck with me most. Survived. For so long, I believed my emotions made me weak. That my empathy was some character flaw. That my reactions were something to be ashamed of. But now I see it clearly. Sensitivity is not fragility. It is endurance. It is carrying pain that would have snapped others in half, and still waking up the next day, heart wide open, ready to try again. It is crying, even when the world says you should not. It is feeling too much, and surviving anyway. They called me too much. Too emotional. Too reactive. Too sensitive. And maybe they were right. But now I know. That was my strength all along.